This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN's NBA Team Podcast. We are starting our 12th season here. It's unbelievable. I'm one of your co-hosts, Andrew Reich. I'm joined by Adam Murray. Adam, we're not there yet, obviously. We're still in the off season. Training camp hasn't even started. They just announced the schedule, so it's all pretty fresh. It's beyond fresh, but it's our time. It's usually our time as podcasters get ready to preview the season.
Yes, season 12. We've been now a dozen years doing this, including the shortened 2019 season, which was just the previews, and we were done. But no,
but we came back. The one that ended with the bubble in 2020. We didn't.
We started 2019. We did the previews. We didn't even do any of the season. Then you decided to get back halfway into the bubble. Yeah, you could say everything's fresh, but this is just more. Everything's sort of like Twinkies, just sort of has a completely long shelf life. As when we did our sort of wrap up very early into free agency, which I think we did over like the 4th of July, it was just like, we don't expect much to happen, and not really much did. And is it just me, or has it been like abnormally quiet for an off season?
I think it has a lot to do with that second apron. And by the way, I don't know. I mean, we can talk about things in between that happened between the 4th of July and now. There were things that happened. I know you're kind of like glazing over things about how it didn't feel eventful, because it didn't. But no major significant trades, no enormous developments other than the Beasley thing that we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, like what it felt like is once everybody hit that limit in terms of the tax limit, which usually is the first week of free agency, once everybody kind of reveals their plans and spends their money, there's really not a lot of teams left that actually have room to do anything once you get past that first week of free agency, which we already discussed. So after that, it's you are what you are. There are a couple teams because of restricted free agency with some players they have, and another team that basically had deals in place for some players, but they're waiting on their restricted free agent. Talking about the Warriors, there are some teams that have money left, like Detroit, Chicago, Utah, the Nets, the Warriors, the Pacers, but the truth is a lot of those teams, they already have their transactions in mind. They're just waiting for the deals to get done.
Kind of, yeah, and it really is Golden State's fault for holding everything up.
Here's the thing. Here's what's going on with the Warriors, because we didn't talk about them really at all because they haven't made any moves. The story is that they're going to sign Al Horford using cap space, and they're going to bring back Gary Payton II. The thing is, they don't know how much the players are going to get because of John Kuminga's restricted free agency. They don't know if it's going to be a sign and trade, which hard caps the Warriors. They don't know if he's just going to sign a tender, which means that maybe Horford's going to get less because that's some money off of his plate. So that's the problem with the Warriors.
No, Horford will get more if they sign a tender, because there's a big difference between signing for $8 million and then signing for $27 million.
Yeah, but listen, if Kuminga signs the tender, that's a little bit of money off of that, and they're not going past the tax.
They're not going past the tax, but they've offered him $2 and $45, so going for $8 million, that means you get all that money you sort of benchmarked for him. Anywho. We'll just get to, I was going to say biggest winners and losers. For biggest losers from a team perspective is Golden State. Like, not only did you do nothing, you've pushed your guy. The worst thing he could do is accept his qualifying offer where he can't be traded. He's unhappy. He's not going to, you've sort of damaged the reputation that has already been completely unhealthy from the beginning. And even Kerr was like, yeah, I don't know how to use him. And that's never a good sign. But
I mean, the divorce is all but finalized. It's just a situation like signing off on it.
But why would you push a guy to do something that is perhaps the worst outcome for your franchise?
Yeah, well, another big loser in the situation, even though he probably won't be a Warrior by the end of it, is Kuminga. And now restricted free agency does that to you. Josh Giddey is going to get paid a lot of money by Chicago. But the reason why the deal's not done is because he's a restricted free agent. There's heavy limits on what a free agent can do when you're restricted because the original team can match anything. The Warriors are daring to match anything. And that's why the Heat was one of the teams that really wanted him. And the Warriors just sat on their hands for too long. And the Heat got to a situation where they had no money left to the point that they actually had to trade away one of their players, Haywood Highsmith,
Your
for nothing.
favorite, Haywood.
I know Haywood, he was in the expansion draft. They dumped him to the Nets for basically nothing because they had to get under the tax. And it's funny too because in between all this stuff, did you read that CJ McCollum got removed as the player president? He's being replaced by the union because a lot of people sort of blamed him for the second tax apron in the new CBA.
Then who's now the acting one?
I don't remember, man. I'm gonna have to look up who it is. The second apron it's a big it's not a scare tactic. It is like legitimate. Owners do not want to pay the extra money if they know that they're not a title contending team. Indiana's not. Milwaukee
There's a
is not.
difference between I understand the concept of we can't keep, Phoenix from spending $500 billion for no reason. However, the penalties are so insanely harsh.
Yeah.
Boston got punished for no reason for drafting good. They didn't spend 500 million bringing in free agents. Oklahoma City's going to have this problem in 3 years now. They're by maxing out Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren and having SGA on a supermax, you're done in 3 years due to it.
That was one that happened after we talked on July 3rd, which was that Chet and Jalen Williams got the big rookie max extensions. I was surprised because I would have actually given Chet a little bit less because of his injury history, but you can't piss off one of your star centers and let him walk away, so if that was the deal on the table, then Chet's going to sign the deal. Jalen Williams, of course, you have to give him rookie max, but they're going to get rookie super max probably because they're both going to be all NBA.
And it was like Orlando, we saw when you gave Jalen Suggs and you gave Franz Wagner those deals and Banchero's getting his
and
max.
Now you're going into the tax and now you have to go for it because you have to prove to the owners this is worth it.
3-year window, and it's just like you have to dip into it and then you got to sell off your parts, and it's just not I don't want to say it's not good for the NBA, but it's not exciting knowing, well, I know this can only be a small window thing. I can't it's hard to build up stars when
it's by design. It's by design, but it's not a perfect design. Like the design of the new CBA is quantity over quality. Like you can't just have like 3 awesome players and win a title. You got to have like a team with 7 to 8, like a superstar, maybe 2 superstars, but you got to have like 7 or 8 good players because
you have to have 7 or 8, but you can't reward the players for doing good now, which is very
well. That's what I mean. Like there's a cap literally on how talented your team can be now. Look at the Thunder. You can't be that good for 2 years because the good ones are going to get scoped.
Yeah, but going back to your original topic of the restricted free agency, it's hard when you have players, and the NFL does the same thing, and I imagine.
Yeah, but they have a franchise tag. The NBA doesn't have that.
But the NFL, like I meant, Emmanuel quickly in his contract threw off everybody's contract and their demands because you have Cam Thomas going, well, I'm just as good as him. You have Josh Giddey going, I'm just as good as him. I should get that contract too. I should be beating him. And then owners are like, well, no, because you're not worth of that. And then
I read a similar story about the Miles Turner signing of Milwaukee that I don't remember which center got paid, but basically Miles Turner's agent was like, well, if that player got that much, my player needs that much. And
was it
Indiana wouldn't budge.
Hartenstein?
I don't know. I think it was somebody who maybe have gotten an extension. Turner was basically like, I'm worth more than that. And Indiana basically hardlined because even though they were willing to pay the tax to keep Turner, there was a certain number where they were like, we're not going past this number. And Milwaukee goes, we'll go past that number. We just have to buy out Damian Lillard, which is what they did.
Yes.
That was the shocker of the whole summer that Miles Turner left Indiana to go to Milwaukee. I do think both teams, Milwaukee is definitely better. Indiana is definitely worse, but Indiana does have a little bit of cap room to do some things if they want to. I don't think they will though.
I want to say it was Hartenstein who they're like, well, they just gave him 30 million. But
It
then
was either that or Nas Reed, one of the two.
yeah, I believe you are correct. It is Nas Reed, and Indiana's like, no, we'll give you 3 and 75.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
just like,
another
why
team that
you?
got punished for developing good players, Minnesota. Like, they had to pay hand over fist to keep Jaden McDaniels and Nas Reed in the fold, and now they're, like, right at the tax, and they couldn't keep Nickeil Alexander-Walker,
Yeah,
and
you can't keep people, and it's hard to do that when you've already traded away their future capital before this all started. Had teams known, like the Celtics, that we're over the second. Oh, there's no way we're trading away our future picks. Those are now more valuable than they've ever been because they're cheap 4-year players.
yeah. And then the other process, we saw this with the Suns, but they failed at it because I just think the roster assembly was terrible, is blow through the second apron. The one team that's going to give it a shot. Dallas is weird because they're right above the second apron. They can do things to get under it, but I think that their owners are actually probably willing to pay a little extra if they have Davis and Kyrie and Cooper Flag and all them other pieces. But the one team that blew through it and they're really going to try out in the East is Cleveland. So I think a lot of people, for the previews for going forward, a lot of people have Cleveland pegged to win the East.
Well, Cleveland, they're in their window. You have the two top teams being, Indiana and then technically Boston, who were the favorite going in last year, out of the
Yeah.
picture. You have New York. So basically, you think it's just you and New York.
I think
So
Orlando's got a shot. I mean, we can
I
talk
meant
about all
as
the
far
different
as
teams.
teams bringing it back from last year,
Oh
not
yeah, like Orlando is not the
Orlando.
same team. They added Desmond Bain to the fold.
Yeah, Orlando and Atlanta are going all in
Mhm.
their minds. So going from the repeats, Cleveland's like, yeah, we're in position for this year to do it, and we know if we can't, it's kind of now you don't have time to bring it back and try again. Like if you fail, well, we got to strip and rebuild, and
Mhm.
it's just the changeover in that front of just swapping out the mid-tier parts. I think it's just going to become wholesale, which
Yeah,
is
I
really
think people have to get I think what it is now is GMs are in this mindset of like we have to be willing to flip our philosophy of what we want to do with this team depending on injuries and depending on fit and depending on what the owner is willing to spend. So it's not like, oh, we have a 3-year plan. No, man, you have like a 1 to 2 year plan. And if that 1 year doesn't work out, you need to like flip your philosophy and just go, all right, we're gonna have to just rebuild for another year or just try to get as many draft picks as possible. But Brooklyn is doing that, but the problem with Brooklyn is like they're so far under the cap. It's like they have, and I know the Cam Thomas thing's going on, but that's another one where he's a restricted free agent, and Brooklyn's like, just because we're under the cap doesn't mean we're gonna give you max money.
because you're not part of the future. And
I think he'll get paid. I think he'll get the money. I think he'll get a number that he's satisfied with, but he's not gonna get like 5 years for 150 million. Like that's not gonna happen.
no, it was, I believe when we did our episode, it was we said in the sort of the 20 million range.
Hmm.
And they're like, well, what's the difference between you and just like Gary
Maybe
Trent, who
Joe
just
Tsai is just lowballing everybody because he just wants to collect picks. Maybe that's all it is.
yeah, that's what he's doing. And like we're not going to try. We need to get a top.
Yeah.
We can't keep getting the seventh pick itch, which is disappointing.
Yeah, they're all the way
And
in the bottom with like Utah and Charlotte. Charlotte has a chance to get out of that basement. Washington, I don't see them getting out of the basement.
that brings my loser of the off season, just going into the restricted free agency, is Quentin Grimes.
Yeah.
I can't think of a worse situation to happen. You had everybody get injured, and then he shined. So, okay, it's time for a payday. Then all of a sudden, in comes that they get the third pick somehow.
Hmm.
And then, well, we'll just draft VJ Edgecombe, who,
I think the biggest problem for him was simple is that Daryl Morey could not move Paul George. And I would have to bet that Philly would love to move him right now and get picks in return or something like that, but just the market wasn't there for for Paul George because he had such a bad year. Coming off of his first year of his new contract with Philly. If there was an open spot there, Grimes would have had the money to
But you
from
draft
Philly.
now the player in the same position for you. You had Jared McCain,
Yeah.
who played 30 games, but they're all similar. So you're on your depth chart. You went from I'm going to make 25 million a year to I'm now third on the depth chart.
Yeah.
When did this happen? That's quite a disappointment. But
Yeah, and then the Clippers, here's the thing. I did want to bring them up. A lot of people call them winners. Do I think that they got better talent-wise? Yes, I did. I highly question going with experience and just experience. Like they are such an old team. Like I'm very fearful that they're just gonna break down by the time they get to the playoffs.
oh, I put them as one of the big winners because everybody's on a 2-year window. So
Mhm.
we're all old. We know we could just sort of phone it in till sort of all-star break and then we'll put it on,
Yeah.
turn it on.
For those who don't know, like who they added Chris Paul, they got Bradley Beal off of the buyout. They bring back Nick Batum. They get Brooke Lopez, who was kind of at the end of his rope in Milwaukee, and they brought over John Collins, who's younger.
John
And
Collins is going to be he is the first
mhm,
team all underrated, I would believe, because
it's a very good team. They're better than the team that lost to Denver in 7 games.
if they can stay healthy, they've improved vastly.
Hmm.
It's just the problem is with the West, but everybody's on a 2-year deal, so they know we'll get all this max money in 2 years because we're not going to sign Kawhi for another max deal. Most likely, his body's at the age of 36. Then
Yeah.
it'd be crazy for them to
Harden,
do it.
I mean, I'm sure you saw the the viral clip of Harden in China, like where they're talking about how he looks out of shape and stuff. I feel like with James Harden, we go through this all the time where he's wearing the fat suit and he just gets his body's out of shape in the off season. Then once the regular season starts, he's James Harden, he's like the guy who gets like 9 assists and 18 to 19 points a game on the regular. So I think they'll be good. The Lakers, they didn't really have a lot. We discussed them a lot when we talked about free agency. So there's really no point in discussing too much more other than Luka's extension, which to me, and I said this when the trade happened, the big one happened in January. I said, look, right now, based off of the talent, Dallas, I felt like won the deal short term just for the rest of the season. Unfortunately, injuries cut them out. But if the Lakers get Luka to sign an extension, the Lakers won the deal, and they did. Luka signed an extension, but he didn't sign for 4 years. He signed, I believe, for 3.
That's irrelevant. The Lakers are just sort of an ESPN problem where everything's, well, what does LeBron think about this? What does LeBron think that they didn't tell him? The dude's 41 and it's his last season, most
This is his
likely.
last season. I'm telling you.
So
I'm
why
pretty
would
convinced.
why are you talking to his agent about what we were gonna like? What are you gonna do? Nobody's gonna trade for. I spent the whole, the end of last season talking about it. Nobody's gonna trade for his 60 million because nobody has the 60 million to give return for that for a player who's at the end.
Right.
So if he's on his farewell tour, of course you're not the focal point anymore.
And
Like
you got to leave some room next year for Reeves because Reeves smartly said, "No, I'm not going to sign an extension now. I might be worth more next year." You need that space. So, and in order to get that space, LeBron's contract has to be out the way. And if there is interest for him after this season, I'm sure there would be. He was second team all NBA last year, if you remember. But man, I just got a feeling that LeBron's just going to walk away from it. Yeah, I think he's kind of done.
ESPN is, as we mentioned about everything, nobody cared about the Oklahoma City championship, the majority of people, because ESPN decided it didn't want to hype it up. They wanted to talk about the Knicks coaching search instead of the championship.
Hmm. And the
So,
Celtics, and what are they going to blow the team up? And is LeBron going to stay in LA and all that jazz? Like that's the big market stuff. You
like,
know,
it's time to start developing new people, and ESPN just stubbornly doesn't want to do it.
Yeah. The one thing they did that was a nice little stealth move was they got Marcus Smart after he was bought out. That will make him slightly better. I don't think it's going to make him like much better, but
Well, we'll get into that when we get into
yeah.
all the our
They're one of those
previews.
teams like the Clippers and the Warriors and the Bucks who we talked where like they're good, but they need a lot of luck to go their way if they really want to like go further than what they would be predicted to be going to. We have a lot of middle of the pack guys. I can tell when the schedule came out that the league is very, very bullish about the Spurs. They think the Spurs are going to be good. And I think that the league believes that the Hawks are going to be good.
No, they do the Spurs because Wembayana is their new promotional guy they're going to push. And they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to last year until he got hurt and then they had all these games. That's the same way Dallas has all these games, and we know they're not going to be good because, well, we went to promote Cooper Flag.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, you have to put somebody in the East, and they have a ton of Boston games, which I don't know.
Detroit got a lot of scheduled games too.
I don't know why you're putting Boston on any games, considering
They're
this
the
season.
Boston Celtics. It's a huge market, and people will just watch because they're the Celtics. That's why. I will say this: like, there are some people that are saying, like, I really want to see Jaylen Brown as like the one option. I'm like, you do?
Yeah, we have to. They gave him a max deal, so this is your time to prove everybody
What I
right.
mean by that is that I know what the results are going to be because that is a very bare roster. It's not going to be. It's going to be at the best a middling team
But in the East, you can be a middling team and you're still in
in
a
the hunt.
7 or 8 seed. That's
Hmm.
the sad reality of the East.
Yeah, you know they. I mean they. It's going to be a lot different with Tatum out of the picture. You know, you bring in Simons, Chris Boucher, a couple of draft picks. It's just going to be tough. It's a tough. It's going to be the kind of year that Bill Simmons is not going to be talking much about. I'll just put it that way.
That's why I was like, there's zero hype for this. There's no.
Mhm.
It's disappointing that the schedule came out. Yeah, nobody. Here's the games of the
I was more
Christmas.
interested in seeing the layout of the new TV deals with NBC and Amazon, and even though it's a little complicated, depending on the months, because you don't want to get football sort of takes over the first 3 months, and then once football's out of the way, it opens up for NBC getting a Sunday night basketball program on a weekly basis, a lot less ESPN games because a lot of those games are going to prime during the weekdays, and Peacock is going to air a lot of games. So it was kind of interesting to see how they laid out the schedule for the new TV deals. I'm interested in seeing the new broadcast teams um for each of those different networks, but otherwise I think it's just I think it's just a matter of like getting used to new things.
Whereas I could care less who the announcing teams are
It
because I
was
usually
disappointing to hear inside the NBA we'll have one tip-off week, and then they won't be back until Christmas. That is
that's the
disappointing.
ESPN way. I mean,
That's disappointing.
you could pay your $40 a month for your 3 networks
Yeah, I
of
mean, well,
sporting games.
we're on a wrestling adjacent feed, and you heard about WWE putting their pay-per-view events on ESPN, which is eye rolling. Like, but yeah, and it's all for football. Like they hurried it up all up so that they could all be set to go by September, which they did, and because they want to just try to get as many subs as possible for the football season. But all this we tip off here in October. They announced the opening night games is Rockets Thunder. That'll be on NBC. And then the next one on NBC that same night is going to be Warriors Lakers. Shocker. And then ESPN the next day gets Cavs, Knicks, Spurs, Mavericks. That sort of gives away, Adam, like the teams that the NBA is pegging on. Like they want to be good.
Yeah, and Lakers and Warriors. It's like,
Yeah. I will say this about the Lakers. I don't think it was a coincidence that the last game of the regular season is a home game against the Jazz, which is actually the same team Kobe played when he played his last game. And he scored, I think, 60 points on 50 shots. LeBron might go for 80.
assuming he's on on the Lakers still at the end.
Oh, I don't think he's getting traded or bought out. I just can't. I can't envision it. I just can't see it. I just can't. But then you always get your off-season TikTok videos of like, oh, this guy's in the factory. Zion looks like he's in shape again, and look at Ben Simmons working on his jump shot, which was a yearly thing that never came to fruition. So, is there anything in the off-season that has kind of made you think, man, this team is one to watch?
We will get to that in our previews when we break it all down and figure out who we can figure out who's worth anything. Or Utah will be bad, but at least we can watch Bailey.
I'm interested in watching Toronto because they're so close to the tax. I think the team knows they have to be good. I think there's going to be some pressure there. So I wonder if they're really going to push hard to make sure that they don't have too many injuries and everybody plays because if they have Ingram, Quickly, Barrett, and Barnes, that's a good team if they're all healthy. I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Well, we will find out. We will be back with some previews. This is just the pre-preview.
Yeah, we have 5 tiers, like 5 groups of teams that we're going to talk about, and it's fun though because when we were talking about teams that we really think are going to like they might win the championship. I was kind of going into it without thinking about the teams and doing the research. I was thinking it's probably 4 max. We wound up with 7. So like I'm actually kind of interested, because we're in this era parity of like, a team other than the Thunder might actually win the championship again.
Well, it's the West, the Thunder. I will just sort of wrap it up with this. The Thunder's championship run was aided greatly by health.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody got injured. I believe they're bringing back 98 or 99% of their finals minutes played.
Yep.
So if one of those guys get injured, as we've seen, and is out for a lengthy time, especially in the West, you're just going to sink awfully fast. But anywho, for Andrew Reich, I'm Adam Murray. Have a good one.
Take care.